Hi everyone, it's Diana the Doll Fairy. Welcome back to my channel. Are you ready for some doll magic? Today we're continuing our Pokemon Zodiac series with the star sign Virgo, the Virgin or Maiden. On the video for Solgaleo, the Pokemon representing Leo, you guys came up with some awesome suggestions for Virgo. The one I chose to represent this star sign, which tends to be associated with innocence and purity, is a legendary Pokemon I've been wanting to create as a doll for a long time, the beautiful and ethereal Mega Diancie. Diancie is known as the Jewel Pokemon, and she has a lot of pink crystals and a big heart stone on the top of her head. She's also already kind of a humanoid type Pokemon, so she was just the perfect candidate. I sketched up what she might look like, giving her a magical girl vibe. The most important element of the design will be her dress, lined with pink crystals. I thought long and hard about how I could make this happen, using real crystals, and I devised a plan for a wire hoop skirt that would be able to hold up a bunch of heavy crystals underneath a frilly dress. Since Diancie has gray skin, I'll be using this Meowlody Monster High doll. Diancie also has these little pointed ear-like structures on the top of her head, similar to Meowlody's cat ears, so I'll be leaving those on. I will need to sand off these white stripes on her arm and leg though. I can't use acetone on those areas of the doll because it will melt the plastic. Instead, I use a nail buffer and nail file to slowly remove the paint from those areas. The nail file is too harsh to use here really, but it's much faster and more thorough than the buffer, so I use a mix of both to minimize scratching up the plastic too much. I couldn't quite remove the little bit of white stuck in the seam of the plastic here, so I chose to simply ignore it. Next, I cut off all of her hair close to the scalp, place the head in boiling water for a minute or so, remove the head, and clean out the glue and hair using jewelry pliers. After removing her face paint too using acetone, she's ready for a new head of hair. Something weird happened when I removed her face paint. Because of the nature of this face mold, I had to use a toothpick to get into the crevices of the lips to remove the original paint. I don't quite know why, but it seems that I scratched up the mouth in the process. My theory is that the acetone was a little too strong in combination with the pressure of the toothpick, and this is the result. I'm going to use pastels to try to heal up those scars later. I'm going to use this intense Candy Kiss pink color for her hair, which I think will be in pigtails or twin tails, whatever you want to call them. I paint the scalp pink, then start the reroot process. Most of it is simply filling in all of these holes with new plugs of hair using my reroot tool. Since I'll be splitting her hair into pigtails, I will need to cross-hatch a part in her hair all the way from the front to the very bottom edge of her hairline straight down the middle. I do this by placing the plugs in two parallel lines and then crisscrossing the plugs of hair back and forth as I go along, covering up the space between both lines of plugs. Next, I'm going to figure out how to make the contraption that will go underneath her dress and hold up the crystals. I bought these pink crystals, which are the perfect shape and size and color, from Amazon. They're actually chandelier crystals, and they ended up being perfect. The smaller ones are from a broken Christmas ornament. The heart I bought years ago because I just think it's really pretty. I, was waiting for a good project to use it on, so. Here, I'm just figuring out how the pieces will work on the doll for the headdress and for the skirt. After a lot of thought work, I'm diving in and starting on the hoop skirt. In order for it to be secure enough to hold a lot of weight, I'm starting to form it above the waist with wire. Then I twisted some wire together to give it more strength and formed a hoop that will coincide with the hemline of the dress, and this should hold up the crystals. Since the crystals hang the lowest at the back and are higher in the front, this hoop will be higher in front and come to a point at the back. I play around with the shape for a while, and then I attach it to the top part using thinner wire, also doubled up and twisted for extra stability. Once the wireframe is complete, it holds up the crystals. Yay! Now to create the dress. Since it's a high-low skirt, I'm starting with the high-low skirt pattern from the Wall Lolly pattern I bought from Requiem Art on Etsy. I actually used that to make my doll fairy dress way back when. So I'm using that as a base, but I'm modifying the skirt length and shape in order to match the wireframe I created. I'm also going to make this skirt 2 layers. The top will be white satin, along with the bodice of the dress, and it will have a sparkly white ruffle. The bottom will be made of this sheer sparkly pink fabric. The wireframe will go in between the 2 layers of the skirt so that for the most part it will be obscured from view. I created a pattern for the bodice using my masking tape method, but I made sure to widen it a little bit so that it won't be tight enough for you to see the wire that's wrapped around her torso. Here I'm creating the skirt ruffles. Gathering them is the most fun part. It's actually kind of a pain, but it looks so nice once it's gathered like that, so it's kind of fun. Then I sew them onto the hem of the skirt and I use my handy dandy iron to flatten the seam. It's still not quite flat enough and I'm not satisfied, so I also do a top stitch across this hem to keep the ruffles in place. Once that's done, it looks really nice. I go through pretty much the same process with the pink skirt, except that I had this whole extra step of outlining the piece with stitches that I would later remove. This was really just for me to see where I was supposed to sew, since I couldn't really use a pen or a pencil or anything to write on this fabric to trace the pattern, so that was kind of annoying, but it worked. If you guys have a better idea for me, let me know, because this was the best I could come up with. Now I'm simply attaching the pink ruffle to the pink skirt, removing the guide stitches, and then top stitching. After that, I gather and sew the skirt itself onto a waistband. I put the skirt on under the wire frame, and then I stitch it onto the doll to make sure it's going to stay in place. I also sew the gathered white top skirt onto the bodice, which has some cute pink Velcro on the back to keep it together. This didn't come out quite perfectly because of the way I gathered the skirt, I guess, but it works despite being somewhat asymmetrical. We're going to try to cover that up a little bit later. I also made these little tiny ruffles and I stitched them onto the bodice to create little off-the-shoulder sleeves. I realized later how vividly this reminds me of Princess Tutu, who I also plan to make a doll of someday. It looks pretty nice on the doll and it fits over the wire frame. Yay! Since Diancie has little gold accents around her neck and waist, I bought this flat gold wire to try to create those pieces. It took a few tries and some tweaking with the pliers, but eventually I was satisfied with the curves and shapes, and I think it really gives the outfit a nice finishing touch. Diancie will also have this little pink crystal in the middle of the bodice because she has something similar to that in the official artwork. For her shoes, I originally envisioned Diancie to have strappy heels, so I tested out Justine Dancer's shoes as well as these glittery transparent pink boots, which are actually ice skates from Fairest on Ice Poppy O'Hare. I love the transparent pink, it goes so well with the color of the crystals, but I just feel like it's going to be way too much with the pink crystals all around and hanging down, and then you have the pink glittery shoes. I think it's just not going to look good together. I considered painting Justine's heels gold, and I think that would have looked pretty good, but I decided to play around with this flat gold wire some more. I wrapped it around, and I decided to use it to make it look like golden ribbons encircling her ankles, and I really like the simplicity of that look. It reminds me of Greek goddesses, and also it reminds me of the Winx Club too. There are a lot of awesome references in this. This standard Ever After High stand isn't really working out for Diancie so far because with the crystals, she's already too heavy. So I'm using this metal stand and bending these little parts so that they will hold up the legs from underneath the skirt. Now we're almost finished except for something really important, her head. The weather was not cooperating with me at all, so it made it almost impossible for me to do the face up. It was just too humid and rainy, and I didn't have any chance to spray MSC for like 2 weeks. It was really annoying. Finally, I was able to squeeze in the initial 2 coats on one non-rainy day, and I started the face up. I definitely felt weird and hesitant trying to draw the face up on a dark gray backdrop. I've never really worked with a dark color like that before. I used light pink to start the sketch. I want Diancie to look cute and innocent, so I'm expanding the size of her eyes beyond what's molded onto the doll originally. That proved to be a pretty simple feat because the mold helped me make my eye outline more symmetrical, so that was nice. But I also want her to look at least a little happy and cute, and her mouth really doesn't lend itself very well to a smile. I'm gonna try my best though, I feel like she needs to be smiling. I'm filling in the basic colors of her eyes for this first layer. Just like the Pokemon, the irises will be red with a pink glow in the center. I don't usually get very fancy with the eyebrows, but this time I'm going to try to create a gradient with the lighter pinks in the middle and the darker pinks on the corners of the eyebrows. After I'm pretty satisfied with the progress of her eyes for the first layer, I use dark gray and light gray pastels on her face to create some shadows, depth, and highlights. Then I take some vivid pink to give her some cute blushing. After sealing the first layer, which was not easy to do thanks to the weather, I work on making the colors more vivid and creating depth and shading in the eyes. I'm using a combination of different shades of pinks and reds in both the iris and the pupil to give the illusion of depth within the eyes. I'm also using some purples here as well. It will take a few layers at least for these colors to build up, especially because we're working on a darker background color. I even use a bit of white to create a glowy look in the eyes. Using my black pencil, I start drawing on the eyelashes, which are a bit difficult to see on camera, it appears. Later I'll be accenting the eyelashes with pink, which will stand out much more against her skin tone. For this layer, I'll use my dark gray pastels to create shading in the whites of the eyes as well. This is a subtle step, but it makes a big difference to how the eyes look in the end. Then we seal again. It's difficult to see, but I'm very lightly indicating eyelashes with this very light pink color. I wasn't entirely sure if it would work or how it would look, so I was very hesitant and careful at first, but the pink lashes look good, so I go back over them afterward with more vivid shades of pink to help them stand out. I used some acrylic paint for the highlights in the eyes, which make Diancie look automatically cuter, don't you think? I'm not 100% satisfied with her lips, which don't look very smiley to me at all, so I think the prominent eye shines at least help her to look a little more sweet and innocent. After a few finishing touches and highlights using the white colored pencil, her face-up is finally complete. And now that her face-up is finally complete, we can reattach her head to her body and create her headpiece at last. I'm really excited about her headpiece because it's a little complex, but it's really cool looking. I have all the crystals that I need, I just need to figure out exactly how to attach them so that they'll stay on her head. Starting with her sheer white veil, I'm using this wired tulle ribbon, and I'm stitching the small crystals onto the bottom corners of both ends of the ribbon. For the crystals that go on either side of her face, I'm using wire to attach these smaller pieces to the larger pink crystals. They're supposed to look like they're just sort of floating below them as if by magic. In order to attach these and the other pieces to the head, I'm creating a wire headband using that good old flat gold wire we used before. I'm starting to really love this stuff. I use more thin gold wire to attach the long crystals to either side of the headband, and then I seal them in place using some hot glue. Then for the heart. I can't even explain how much I love this crystal heart. It's so shimmery and rainbowy. It's just mesmerizing to look at. I'm going to hot glue the smaller crystals to the back of the heart to ensure that they're positioned just right. Then I use more wire to securely attach the heart to the top of the headband, making sure that it will sit in the right place on her forehead. Now I attach the veil onto her head using a tiny pin, place the metal headband on her head, and Mega Diancie is finally complete! Okay Diancie, ready to Mega Evolve? Mega Diancie is one of my favorite legendary Pokemon because of its lavish and girly design. I love the crystals, the heart on her head, and all the pink. I like that my custom doll version of Mega Diancie has those same elements, and I'm especially proud that I was able to create an outfit that incorporated so many actual crystals. Between all the jewels and the gold accessories, she's really like a giant piece of jewelry, and I love it. There are a few things I didn't get to do with this doll, like curling the ends of her pigtails. I just ran out of time and I was too afraid to mess her up by that point. But I also thought that curling the ends of her hair might draw the eye to her hair too much, and I really want you to focus more on her dress and crystal accents than on her hair. So I think it all works out for the best. What I really love about her is that her vibe is a combination of anime-style magical girl plus exotic goddess. Ooh, so pretty! Can I borrow this dress sometime? And the crown too, please? The Doll Fairy Pokemon family continues to grow. I wonder who will be next. Thanks so much for joining me for this installment of the Pokemon Zodiac series, and happy birthday to all those Virgos out there. Next up is Libra. What Pokemon would you choose to represent Libra? Make sure to comment below with your choice. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all again very soon for another dose of doll magic. Bye!